Hello everybody and welcome back to another modelled writing video. So if you have been with us before, then you will know how these videos are structured, but if you are new here, welcome. And today we are going to look at two task 1 questions. So task 1, you will be given some data in the form of maybe a bar graph or a line graph or a map, and you will be expected to report back on that data, minimum of 150 words, and you'll have 20 minutes. So it can be a bit overwhelming or not sure where to start with this. That's why we're doing these videos, to help you with the structure and to know where to start and how to plan these questions, because once you have that, I think each question is, you'll approach it in the same way that we'll talk about today, and these tasks become a lot more straightforward then. So hopefully you enjoy today's video. We'll be doing two different types of questions. So if maybe you've booked your IELTS exam, maybe you just want to know how task 1 works, you've come to the right place. Okay, well, let's get started then, and we'll have a look at our first task, and that is going to be looking at pie charts. Notice the S there. So we've got more than one pie chart, and this is it can be quite common. You might not get one, but you might get two. This initially might seem a bit overwhelming, but actually this could be useful when we're thinking about the groups, because we want to compare and contrast and put them into groups. So actually having more than one can make it easier in some ways. Okay, let's have a look at the question. The charts below show local government expenditure in 2010 and 2015. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so we are being told how to answer the question. They want us to select and report the main features. Very important there. We don't want to report on absolutely everything. We just want to report on the main, most striking, most important, most relevant features, and also make comparisons where this is relevant, where this is interesting or particularly obvious perhaps. So again, we're not making comparisons with absolutely everything, we're just doing it where we think is most important. And that is something that you will be critiqued on as well. So something to bear in mind. You won't be required to talk about everything, just the main parts, which again makes our job easier because we don't have too much time. 20 minutes, that's not enough time to report on everything anyway. So this is all going well so far. Okay, so what are we looking at actually? There are two pie charts that are going to be talking about government expenditure. So what the government is spending their money on. These might be the pie charts, maybe one for 2010 and one for 2015. Oh, and we have them here, and we will write, there is a pie chart for each of these years. I've moved the question to the left so we can see this properly on the right. Okay then, so we have our key, and these categories stay the same for both pie charts, which is quite nice because we can compare a bit easier then between the two. Alrighty, initial impressions. What is jumping out at me? Education. This light blue section of the pie is the biggest share in both, actually. We also have healthcare, a big section, and pensions. And those are in fact the first three in the key. So this is going well. Okay. So we can definitely talk about those. Now, initially, I'm thinking, right, groupings. overview. I'm just getting ideas for these different aspects that we're going to talk about. So groupings, I'm thinking, let's do the years to make this as easy as possible. We don't want to overcomplicate this. Let's do one for 2010 and one for 2015. And an overview, we can talk about education having the highest percentage in both years. What else strikes out to me? The transport, which is this dark blue, is low in both. This orangey red, dark red colour. Culture and leisure is very small, and also other is very small as well. So they follow similar. We're quite similar in a lot of ways, so we can absolutely make those comparisons. I'm just thinking if there's a striking difference. The largest difference is probably welfare. That jumps up by 8%. 5%, 8 to 13. Okay, so we've really thought about this. We're making sure we've understood the question. We're digesting as much information as possible, but we don't need to digest it all. We're just picking on the biggest parts here. That being said, then I think we can go to our plan. Now you might think, oh, is the plan really necessary for task 1? Well, it is, in terms of the argument is we don't have a lot of time. So of course you can argue, well, in that case, let's focus on answering the question. But our argument is, well, you don't have a lot of time, so we need to absolutely prepare for our answers as much as possible. Therefore, a plan is, in fact, essential for this. Okay, so let's think about 2010 then. Let's talk about that in our first group. Yes, this one here. And then group 2, we're going to talk about 2015. Just this one here. An overview, let's say the education sector area consumed the largest amount of money in both pie charts. That's the general theme that we're going for. So for our overview, we're just making a sweeping statement that we're going to set up the essay with, and then later we can think about going into detail and drawing numbers from the charts. But just for now, that keeps us on track. That makes doing our write-up even easier and simpler. Okay, so let's go to the write-up itself. Unfortunately, the pie charts are a bit smaller on this page, but we can still see they're labelled, which is quite nice, so that's good. We have the question, of course, and we have this chart, this image here, which really helps us with synonyms. Now, a big part of this task is we don't want to repeat ourselves. We want to use words interchangeably. So this is a visual reminder of that, and we can use these types of words. So different words for decline, plateaued, increased, and adverbs are really, really useful for task 1 to talk about how they change. So rapidly, significantly, moderately, and we'll use these throughout as well. Okay, so what's the first thing we need to do? You might be thinking, well, we need to, let's move this there. We need to paraphrase, which means put into our own words this sentence here. The pie charts below show local government expenditure in 2010 and 2015. That is what we need to reconstruct into our own sentence. Okay, so we can be more specific. We could say the pie charts display information regarding local government, regarding spending on a just maybe a small level, or a local is hard to paraphrase, so a local level maybe, regarding spending on a local level in 2010 and 2015. So you'll see that we haven't paraphrased every single word. That's unnecessary. We want to keep the meaning here, so don't worry too much about doing every single. That's impossible. We just want to do a rough, a general paraphrase, which still holds the meaning of the sentence. So the pie charts display information regarding spending on a local level, and we're editing as we go, in 2010 and 2015. Okay, let's go into our overview now. So what's our sweeping statement? In both years, the biggest expense was in the education, or maybe the biggest investment, maybe monetary investment. Monetary investment was in the education sector, and we're looking at our plan to help us with this overview. Okay, so education sector was the biggest. We're not going into detail though. We could expand this a little bit and say, what was the lowest? Culture and leisure. So we could say, whereas culture and leisure was amongst the lowest. In both years, the biggest monetary investment was in the education sector, whereas culture and leisure was amongst the lowest. Okay. Right, so let's then make a start on our first group, which is going to be 2010. Okay, so government expenditure in 2010. Let's make a start, and we can talk about the education sector to begin with, and perhaps the other two high categories as well, healthcare and pensions. Okay, so education in 2010 consumed 24% of government. It's okay to use that here and there, as long as we're not repeating ourselves too much. Government spending, or government money, local government money, making it the highest percentage. Okay, additionally, healthcare and pensions also took a reasonable share, and we can talk about the percentages respectively. So we can look back. Healthcare, let's do that first. 21% and 19% respectively. Lovely. So we've talked about these three high percentage groups to start off with. Now, what should we focus on? We could focus on the low groups, like low percentages like transport, culture and leisure, and other, perhaps. Or maybe we could talk about the drop between defence and welfare here. So after defence, and I like a bracket, we can do 17%. There is a significant drop with the other categories regarding spending. We can call it expenditure. Three sectors or areas saw spending under 5%. So we're talking about we don't always have to be specific. We can be quite general. This included we've got transport, culture and leisure, and other. Okay, let's read this back and see how this sounds. Education in 2010 consumed 24% of local government money, making it the highest percentage. Additionally, healthcare and pensions also took a reasonable share, 21% and 19% respectively. After defence, 17%, there is or maybe we can change that, keeping in mind the tense of this, obviously 2010, past tense. After defence, there was a significant drop with the other categories regarding expenditure. 3 areas saw spending. Spending. That might be okay. Saw figures of under 5%. This included transport, culture and leisure, and other. Okay, so we've not reported on every single part of the pie chart, just the main parts, and for some of it we haven't even been specific. We've grouped them together, so that's a good tactic there as well. Right, so let's go into 2015 and we can make comparisons here. So just like in 2010, 2015. In 2015, the highest budget was dedicated to education. And we can do a bracket again, 21%. And then let's talk about the high healthcare and pensions. We can say, however, the gap between the highest spending and pensions was less, only 1%. Or maybe the fall between the highest spending between, maybe we could be more specific, education and pensions was less, only 1%. So we can talk about the differences as well, which is a good way to sneak in some data there. Another 1% fall, or another 1% drop for not pensions, healthcare. Really important to double check. Another 1% drop for pensions was seen. And then the other categories were all below 15%. There we go. So we're talking about them more generally with brackets, which I think is quite nice. So let's pull specifics now. Welfare, we can talk about the increase. Saw the most be significant. Yes, we have the most sharp rise, or instead of saw we could say witnessed Welfare witnessed the most sharp rise, going from 8% in 2010 to 13% in 2015. Okay, so we're going into specifics now, and we could talk about the lowest. So the lowest three groups, the lowest three groups were stayed the same, or yes, stayed the same, or maybe did not change from 2010. In 2015, 2015, they all shared 1%. All shared an equal amount at 1%. Okay, let's read this back and see how we're doing. Just like in 2010, in 2015, the highest budget was dedicated to education, 21%. However, the fall between education and healthcare was less, only 1%. Another 1% drop for pensions was seen, and then the other categories were all below 15%. Welfare witnessed the most, maybe the most doesn't sound so smooth. We can say the sharpest rise, going from 8% in 2010 to 13% in 2015. The lowest three groups did not change from 2010. In 2015, they all shared an equal amount at 1%. Okay, so we've paraphrased, we've said our overview, then we've looked at the two pie charts, and you can see how we've compared, contrasted, not talked about every aspect, picked the most relevant information, grouped sections together. So we've not only compared between the pie charts, but we've grouped and compared within the pie charts as well. I think that's a really strong answer. Let's look at the word count here. Okay, so this brings us to 165 words, so not that much over the limit. That's reasonable to aim for. We can always add in if you've got time, you could perhaps draw another example or put in some more data. But I think this provides a really good structure for you to follow, so then you can draw your own examples from the pie charts there. Okay then, so that was our first task of today, pie charts. So you can see how even though there's two, which might seem a bit intimidating, it actually lends itself to the groups quite nicely, and I think in a way it's probably a bit more straightforward. Okay, brilliant. So let's go to our next task then, which is going to be looking at a bar chart. No S here, so just the one bar chart. The bar chart gives information about the number of car journeys into the city centre made by residents and non-residents. Summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay then. So we're being told to do the same as we did in the last task. In every task one, we want to select and report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so what is this bar chart going to be about? The number of car journeys into the city centre. And we've got two different groups, residents and non-residents. Okay, here is the bar chart itself. So let's have a look. On the x-axis, we have the years. 1996 to 2005. We've got a key here for residents in blue and non-residents in orange. We've got two different points in time, actually. We've got parking meters introduced by the city centre. And we've also got Westgate street and park lane closed to traffic here. On the y-axis, we've got average number of journeys per day. So this is the amount of journeys we've got. Okay then, so initial thoughts. Both the non-residents and residents decreased after certain streets were closed due to traffic. So that means that cars can't go down those streets. And so this is a dramatic drop there. Also, after the parking meters were introduced, you can see that residents' numbers dropped significantly as well. Okay, but they were the highest at the beginning. Okay then, so we have our question again, and this is where we can put our plan into place. So we've got some space here to think of our groups. Now we could do different groups. We could group them in terms of the years, maybe talk about both of them. We could talk about maybe the numbers might be a bit difficult. I think for this, I'm just going to talk about residents and also non-residents and compare them between themselves. So lots of comparisons will be made, but I think we'll keep it simple and just do the residents and non-residents groups. Okay, so the overview then. Both residents and non-residents significantly traveled less after areas were closed. So we just want to talk about this striking observation that they both fell after this street and lane was closed. Okay, so we've got our group 1, we've got our group 2, and then we've got our overview. So let's go to the write-up. Okay, so we've got our question. We've got some words to help us here. You won't have this in the exam, unfortunately, but they are here to help us today. And we've got our data here. So the first thing we need to do, as always, we need to paraphrase this sentence here. The bar chart gives information about the number of car journeys into the city centre made by residents and non-residents. So we can say the bar chart, that's okay. Maybe the bar chart provides insights into the figures for motor car or motor vehicle journeys. For motor vehicles travelling into the centre of town or of the city or the heart of the city made by both individuals living there and others who do not reside there. Okay, let's read this back. It's a bit wordy, but we'll see if it sounds okay. The bar chart provides insights into the figures for motor vehicles travelling into the heart of the city, made by both individuals living there and others who do not reside there. Okay, I think that's good. We've paraphrased as much as we can here without losing the meaning. It's a bit of a longer sentence, but that's okay. Now we can go into our overview. So we can say after Westgate Street and Park Lane. Oh, and we're not being too specific here, but we can say the street names. After Westgate Street and Park Lane were closed off to cars or to were pedestrianized, maybe. Which means only for people. Making sure we're spelling that okay. Pedestrianized. Both, or the amount of journeys significantly dropped for both residents. It's okay to say the words here and there as long as we're not repeating ourselves too much. And non-residents. Okay, after Westgate Street and Park Lane were pedestrianised, the amount of journeys significantly dropped for both residents and non-residents. There we go. So we've given our overview there of the sweep. We need our sweeping statement. Brilliant. Okay. So now we can dive into the first group, which was all about residents. Okay. So initially in 1996, residents were making more trips into the city than non-residents. We've got 9,000, 10,000. So maybe 9,000. 100, 200, maybe 9,800. 800. And this is the biggest difference of the whole of the bar chart, really, between residents and non-residents. This year saw witnessed the biggest difference with both groups. Okay, what happened then? So this figure remained, we can say over 9,000, remained over 9,000 until 2000. So we're being quite general now, until the year 2000, which saw a dramatic drop for, I just noticed this. So we're always checking spelling as well. Residents traveling this way. This year saw 5,000 car journeys, and this is almost half than it was in 1996. We can state that. Almost half of what was taking place in 1996. We can mention after parking meters were introduced, when parking meters were introduced, which saw a dramatic drop for residents travelling this way. This year, or we could say the year in question, the year that we're just talking about, the year in question saw 5,000 car journeys, almost half of what was taking place in 1996 for residents. So we're comparing between both groups and between residents and residents at different points of the year as well. We'll compare a lot more with non-residents in the next group. Okay. So then what happened? This figure did not change too much when certain streets were closed. This statistic stabilized to an extent. Oh, stabilized. To an extent over the next few years and ended with 4,000 journeys in 2005. Okay, let's read this back and see how we're doing. Initially, in 1996, residents were making more trips into the city than non-residents at 9,800. This year witnessed the biggest difference between both groups. This figure remained over 9,000 until the year 2000. Until the year 2000, when parking meters were introduced, which saw a dramatic drop for residents travelling this way. The year in question saw 5,000 car journeys, almost half of what was taking place in 1996. We could be more specific here and say for residents. This statistic stabilised to an extent over the next few years and ended with 4,000 car journeys in 2005. Okay, so we've not talked about every single figure. We've generalised and grouped them together, and we've slightly compared with non-residents. But now let's talk about non-residents, and this will compare the two groups a lot more. So we could say, as mentioned, non-residents in 1996 took significantly less trips into the city than residents. And let's have a look. 5,000. And then this increased. This number steadily rose until 1999, where we're looking at maybe 8,200, where it reached 8,200. Oh, making sure our zeros are correct. Unlike residents, now comparing, unlike residents, the trips were not affected so much by parking meters. And almost plateaued. So they almost stabilized. For the next parking meters, we can say at the end of 1999, at the start of 2000, for the next 1, 2, 3 years. Yeah, okay. So then the dramatic decrease was seen when the streets were closed. The sharp decline in trips was seen when Westgate, Street and Park Lane were closed to cars, or maybe to traffic. In 2003, non-residents made 3,000 journeys. This ended in 2005. We can talk about with nearly 5,000 trips being made by non-residents. Okay, let's read this back. As mentioned, non-residents in 1996 took significantly less trips into the city than residents. 5,000 to be exact. We can say that to be exact. This number steadily rose until 1999, where it reached 8,200. Unlike residents, the trips were not affected by parking meters. We could say, were not particularly affected by parking meters at the start of 2000 and almost plateaued for the next 3 years. The sharp decline in trips was seen when Westgate Street and Park Lane were closed to traffic. In 2003, non-residents made 3,000 journeys. This ended in 2005 with nearly 5,000 trips being made by non-residents. 1,000 more than residents. There we go. Okay, so word count. This is definitely longer. Let's see how much this comes to. Okay, so my calculations comes to 226 words. So a little bit over the 150 word limit there. Sorry, not limit, the minimum, but there is no upper limit. So this could be achievable for you, and hopefully you can see what perhaps you could maybe miss out if you were going to write, if you were writing less than this. That's okay. But that was our bar graph today. So bar chart. Hopefully that has increased your confidence with tackling these questions. We have pie charts and bar graph today in this video. So we love to hear from you. If you have any questions, do let us know, and we'll see you in the next video.